It's Ron over here, Becoming Enlightened Together. I got my little poncho on because it's a little bit chilly where I'm at right now. So close to a couple of bodies of water. So and that air, that breeze hits off that body of water. It just it gets a chilling effect. Anybody who's lived close to the ocean knows what that's like, or a large lake. Anyway, with that being said, our energy for the week remains the same as it has been all week, and that is that of algiz. Today, by the way, is Thursday. Thursday, God, what is it, the 29th? God, January's just gone by so fast. Anyways, algiz is basically a powerful rune, very, very positive energetically in the upright. Talks about the soul, friendship. It actually means elk. Uh, I'm not quite sure yet, and I don't want to give you a false understanding of what it means. I've heard a couple of different possibilities, but the reason it's referred to an elk and everything else, because I'm not 100% sure, I don't want to give that to, but that's one of the first words that comes up in terms of the meaning. So, but it has a lot of other, significance behind it as well, in terms of fortunate, aspiration, protection, defense, shielding, protective urge to shield oneself and others, overcoming evil or warding off of evil. So it's basically a rune in terms of defense of all types. Okay. From a military perspective, from a personal protection perspective, for protection over yourself and others, family, your home, things of that nature. So again, use it in that capacity. That's the energy that encompasses this entire week. So it's a very positive one because we see, like we do today, indications of people coming back into our lives at the end of this cycle, some of which are really desperately trying to get you locked into a repeat of the previous cycle. And if you do that, it could have repercussions that extend beyond what most of us could be aware of or even want to think about. We do not want to take on another person's karma. It's not our place to do so. We have karma just like when you're, disciplining a child. You do it lovingly and not, physically or vigorously in most cases anyway. There may be a justification in some cases, but I can't think of that right now. The point is that God does the same thing with us in terms of correction of the universe, source, whatever it is you believe in, okay? So we have to keep that in mind, okay? And by trying to take away the karma of another person, and of course this is one of those subjects that can get off on an unbalanced point of view in terms of like seeing people suffer needlessly and so on, when you can literally give them either some form of shelter or some form of nourishment or whatever the case may be, or water, to drink if they're thirsty, whatever the case may be. That's not what I'm referring to. I'm talking about somebody who's done a lot of horrible things. You're aware of those horrible things, and now they are starting to reap, if you will, the fruits of their labor. If you try to take that on or minimize that, then you are robbing them, one, of the chance of allowing that to do its work, to get them to really reflect and then hopefully do the inner work necessary to overcome those a lifetime of poor, decision-making processes and so on. And by enabling them, you're also, again, you're taking not only the burden off of their shoulders, so you're possibly taking away their chance to grow, but also you are yourself inheriting a great deal of that pain and discomfort that you, until that choice, have done nothing to earn. So there's a lot of wisdom involved in this, thing called life, and it's oftentimes, we decide things because of feelings, and it's not balanced with the intellect. We have to be able to balance these things out. And again, the reason I truly believe that everything in this life is about balance. When you decide or make decisions solely on emotions, you're going to err a good portion of the time. Just like if you think of things only in an analytical sense with no emotion added to that, then you are going to be cold and, again, make a lot of mistakes. So there has to be balance in all things. And this is why we were given these emotions. And this is what separates us from other creatures, if you will. And I'm not talking about other animals. I'm talking about different dimensional beings, some of which may not have emotion. And they envy us as, to that. And by that, I'm talking about certain types of, well, it's even talked about in some realms in the extraterrestrial, belief systems. Not that, I could really comment on that, but in terms of negative or low vibrational entities, things we call archonic. They may be devoid of that type of creativity, because a lot of our creativity comes from that emotional, fiery side of us, from our root or our sexual chakras. So, anyways, I digress. So August is a very powerful rune, and that's the overall energy for the week. Now, the past energy for today, which is Thursday, is Manas, and Manas is also in the upright, and it's a rune speaking about humanity, humans, mankind. It talks about the self. It talks about attitudes towards other people and theirs towards you. Altruism. Talks about a person's modesty or lack thereof, thought, creative attitudes and endeavors, friends, enemies, the social order of things, intelligence, forethought. Talks about your abilities, the divine structure of things, awareness, and also you can expect to receive help either now or in the very near future. If you have need of help in some regard, it's coming. Okay, so that's very, very positive. It lets us know this. Now, the present energy is that of Rado. Rado also is in the upright, and Rado in the upright speaks about a cart, a chariot, a wagon, a vehicle, a car, the wheels on a car. It talks about travel, vacations. It talks about right action and messages, control. It talks about travel both in physical and also within lifestyle variations and so on, or changes. It talks about relocation and evolution, change of place or setting, movement in some way, fashion, or form. Okay, seeing a larger perspective on things, also seeing the right move to make on a particular issue and deciding upon it. In other words, going for it, doing that which you see needs to be done. And then talks about the rhythms in the universe, personal rhythms, worldly rhythms, universal rhythms, or cycles. Okay, so Rado is a very, very positive rune. Now, why is all of this, which is positive, essential in terms of what I believe this reading is kind of talking about? This reading seems to be talking about, in my perception of things, that somebody wants to come back. Okay, so this is the energy that you're basically in or entering into at the close of this cycle. Very positive and so on. Our obstacles and challenges is also in the upright. We have Yera. Yera in the upright talks again about things that are basically seasonal. Harvests, the fruits of your labor finally coming in, all the work that you put out there, the good or bad karma that you have manifested for yourselves. It talks about peace, loneliness, not loneliness, legalities, peace. It talks about hope and expectations, peace and prosperity, promises of success earned. Again, good karma. Everything that you can put under that particular classification or heading, that's what this is basically talking about. So the results of all of your earlier efforts now being made manifest, for the good or for the bad. That's what it means. Again, now, the help and advice is Isa. Now, Isa in the upright is talks about basically being in stasis, stagnant, static, ice, frozen, low energy, a loss. It talks about separation, focus and privacy, ill feelings, challenges and frustrations, psychological blocks, including grievances of some kind, a standstill of some type. It talks about a time to turn inward for what is to come, to seek clarity and to listen to your intuition. Okay, so I get this impression from all of this that even though these things are very, very positive, that we have to be on the guard about something. And in our future, we have Gibo. Now, Gibo is ordinarily a very, very positive rune too. X marks the spot in the treasure map, but this one is in the reverse. Now, Gibo in the reverse talks about problems with the roots of an emotional nature. It talks about greed, loneliness, depression, over-sacrificing perhaps, obligations, toil, privation, and bribery. Now, this is, again, just something that it's very subtle in this reading, but I get the impression that somebody is coming back. Somebody that wants you to repeat a cycle with them. Somebody who is going to use their baser, abilities, if you will, to somehow convince you to repeat the cycle with them. Although they're not going to come out and say exactly that. They're going to try to entice. They're going to try to, bribe in some way. They're going to try to bring you back. And again, we've talked about this a couple of times over the last couple of weeks in particular, how somebody, and probably everybody, that is on the low vibrational side in your particular sphere of influence is now being used as a vassal to come in there and try to, at the last second, trip you up before you get completely over that finish line. So do not rest yet, okay? And that doesn't mean, of course, to be paranoid and everything else. But it does mean that you are at the most vulnerable state of this. You are so close to success. And I guarantee you that, the powers that be, whatever they may indeed be in your mind, that work on the other side of the spectrum, are doing everything they can to keep you from succeeding in getting over that finish line at all. So anybody who comes from your past, or even anybody new that comes into your life, and it just seems too good to be true, or they are really, really trying to entice you in some fashion, form, just be wary. Trust your instincts, question it, take your time. That's probably the best advice I can give you. Don't rush into anything. Yes, we all long to be held by somebody and, of course, to be intimate and all those types of things. Everybody has that, feeling. Some people, it's just a means for them to get off altogether. That's as far as anything goes. And for those who are really longing for something more than that, it could be a trap if you're not careful. For those who fit the first category I just named, they use those things to their own advantage. So take it slow. Don't jump in anything too quickly, of course. And trust your instincts. It may be something that you have been praying for. Like we're intimating here, what you're asking for seems to be coming your way, whatever you wished for. But remember now, there are also sayings in regards to be careful what you wish for. You may indeed get it. You may have wished for this before you realized the things that you may now know about this person or people that are coming back into your life. So proceed cautiously is what I'm getting at. Okay? And that's where I'm going to leave you. And again, as always, I always wish you guys the very best. Nothing but victory for the collective. And as long as you continue to do your work, it's guaranteed. You will be successful. We will, as a collective, be successful. And we will make a change in this world that we have all, along the way, seen as an absolute necessity for the survival of our species. If we do not change things, we do not correct the things that we see every day that are just so heinous and just so absolutely wrong, and these people who have gotten away with so much for so long. If we don't do something about that soon, it's going to have a extremely detrimental effect upon, the world as we know it, especially in today's world where literally we're just a button push away from absolute destruction. Okay, and I mean that very, very sincerely, because being in the military, being involved with secret things such as the nuclear program and the military, um, from both the assembly as well as disassembly and destruction, as well as the protection of those armaments, at least from a battalion standpoint. Uh, I was made privy to some history or whatever that a lot of people don't know about, for example, and of course taking things always to the next highest level and many levels beyond that at times when I can. I've discovered far, far more things about this and how close we've already come many times in history to that exact brink. And I'm not just talking about the obvious things like, the Cuban Missile Crisis during Kennedy's administration. The CIA helped initiated, system of doings that almost brought the entire world to destruction. I mean, we're talking about a breath away. If any of these so-called leaders would have been in that same position of power today and had been faced with this tremendous amount of decision making and everything else, I fear what would have happened to this world. So, Kennedy, despite his many wrongs, is also, he should be heralded for being a true leader, especially since he knowingly, his family was involved with many of the these secret organizations and groups who basically do at a higher than mid-management level pull the strings in world affairs today. The Kennedy family was a powerful, I'll just say Illuminati for, an all-encompassing umbrella type of title for the overall organizations involved. Although I don't believe it has a name, or if it does, it's one that none of us know about. But it gives us an idea of what we're talking about. They were one of the 13 Illuminati bloodline families. So for him to go against the grain and try to do away with organizations like the Federal Reserve banking scam, which is nothing less than an international banking cartel, it's usurped and taken over the financial, hegemony of America as a whole and thus the world, because we enforce it, militarily speaking, as well as our Central Intelligence Agency. Kennedy was in the process of doing away with both of those things before he was murdered in broad daylight. Okay? So, now I know I have a lot of information on that subject, a lot that most people have no idea about, because I've really gone into it and I haven't turned over every stone perhaps, but every stone that I, as a civilian, was capable of getting my hands upon, I certainly have looked at. So, and I know basically who was found guilty for his death in the civil court, for example, CIA hitman, and that there were multiple shooters, not a single one. That Lee Harvey Oswald was actually working with Kennedy at that time, not against him, and that he was set up as a patsy. And there were as many as 12, 13 shots that were fired that day, not the 3 from the Italian bolt-action rifle, which, coincidentally, I might add, was tested. The theory of Oswald acting alone and firing from the suppository with that particular piece of crap weapon that he was said to have used. The best marksmen of our day were basically hired to test that theory out, and that was Gunnery Sergeant Hathcock, a Marine Corps sniper, Vietnam, over 97 confirmed kills, and his best shooters. And they were not able to carry out what Oswald, who was barely able, as a Marine Corps, veteran himself, able to produce, being that he barely even passed in terms of his rifle qualification. So, the more you add up, the more you see who was involved. And besides, who had some power to pull off the Secret Service protection from Kennedy right before he goes into the kill zone? And I've got the video showing it happen, where they literally called him off right before he makes that hairpin turn into the kill zone. So he had no CIA around, or I should say, he had no presidential protection at all around him. Not from the local police department, not from the U.S. military, and certainly not his Secret Service. Nobody was around him when he died. It wasn't until after he got the fatal shot, that they all presumably rallied and, all of that. That's a whole other story. But what I'm saying is nothing is as we see. It's all staged by the same people that are controlling everything that we are, expected to believe and regurgitate, from public academia to, the so-called news that they feed us each and every day. Nothing less than propaganda. And I will be here to educate, as we go on with facts, not just words coming out of my mouth, but I'll show you all of these things in a later date. I've already made little videos and all of this. I've already talked and read. I mean, not just read, but I have written about these subjects many times over the last 16 years, on Facebook alone. But, being what it is, there's only a handful of people that actually have any interest in what possibly could be true, even with all the facts being presented. They can look up for themselves. The thing that I do when I write or any of this stuff, and then I'll shut up and leave you guys to it, is that I'll always give you the resources. In other words, when I tell you that this has happened or that has happened, it's never just my opinion. It's from this source. And oftentimes it'll be right out of the horse's mouths themselves, either the CIA, for example, and or from declassified CIA or operations, whether it's, and there's a multitude of them, Operation Mockingbird and so many others, in terms of the media. And just, depending on what subject we're talking about, there's many that show you how they are implicated in a lot of what's happening. And if it was exactly, them or part of their control in terms of the so-called military-industrial complex, it's a corporate takeover as well as an intelligence takeover and political takeover. It's a banking takeover. They're all at the highest levels working together in this situation. And that's why laws are so-called are made, to benefit the wealthy at the expense of the poor always. That's why you have so much of your annual income stolen from you every single year, and you do nothing about it. You think it's within their right to do so when it isn't. It never was. And, even the Constitution itself, it talks about what government is not allowed to do. It doesn't talk about what your rights are, what you're allowed to do. It was never made with that in mind. And it makes it very, very clear. Just read the writings from the Founding Fathers themselves. You see that we're allowing to happen to us on a daily basis. Probably 96 to 98% more or greater in terms of its viciousness against us as a people than what they rose up and fought against the superpower of their day. And only a small percentage of them actually participated in that rebellion, by the way. But that's neither here nor there. The point is that we are taking on the evil and thus becoming accomplices to that evil. Okay? So you might want to really consider that, because you're not innocent. You're not. Your gut tells you that there's something wrong. If you choose not to, discover what that actually is, what it means, and what you're, what you yourself are responsible for, doing or not doing in regards to that. Again, as they say, the only way for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing about it. That's not a biblical statement, by the way, even though it does come from biblical belief systems for the most part, or religious belief systems in general. I would say it extends beyond Christianity. It follows the golden rule almost specifically. But the point of the matter is, and I know I've segued a lot, I'm just very passionate about things beyond just the rooms. I love the rooms. I love my spiritual walk and all that that implies. But I have this deep, deep desire to try to wake people up as best as I'm capable of doing, with my decades of research and everything else and all that I've uncovered. So, and I'm not alone, not by any stretch of the imagination, but I've been sharing it long before it was, cool. And I know that today a lot more people are involved in it, and I'm happy for that. Don't get me wrong, you know. So, I am. I continue to do my little part. I pray that for those of you out there listening, you will do your part as well. Because we are in a battle. It's an epic battle. Here and now, right this very moment. And it doesn't matter whether you're a soldier in the physical sense, or if you're a soldier who gets on their knees and prays. If you can't move, you can't get on your knees, I don't care if you're bedridden. You can do so much with your added prayers in regards to this battle, because it is a spiritual battle. Everything happens in the heavens before it happens here. As above, so below. Okay, that's what that means. Things are happening in the spiritual realm long before they happen here in the physical. So let's get together, let's pray about that, let's do the right thing. And none of us are perfect, and none of us are without, as you were, some form of feeling guilty for our actions, for our weaknesses, for giving in, for not treating somebody this way, that way, that way. You always have the ability while you have breath to make it right. So try to do so, okay? And realize that we are all human, and we have a good and a so-called not so good side to us, and we're trying to merge those things, take control of those things, and be the most complete and balanced version of ourselves possible. And with that, I will actually leave you to it, because I've rambled on. I don't want to chase people away. So, victory to everybody in the collective, and I will see you in the far-off, distant future in Valhalla, where we will indeed do battle in the spiritual realm against the forces of evil, so to speak. Okay? Take care. God bless.